What's going on, guys? It's Groove, and today we have the Fiat Standard by Saifedeanammous. So this guy went crazy. Well, he got really famous, I guess, if you would say, from the Bitcoin standard. So what the Bitcoin standard was, it was pretty much just like it scratched the surface on the history of money and why Bitcoin is here to save us all. And so that book did really well. So well, in fact, that he wrote the Fiat Standard that we have today, which dives deeper into the history of money and deeper into the current fiat system that we live in right now. Today, we're going to be diving into debt slavery, why you're broke, why you can't get ahead. It's not really your fault, but at the same time, it kind of is your fault. Well, most people put themselves into bad situations, but the system is designed to get worse and worse year after year. So if you understand the system, you can kind of get ahead. So we're going to dive into that today. So he first starts out by saying that nobody knows exactly how much fiat exists. You need to understand this is how the system is designed. Every time you take out a new loan or somebody takes out a new loan, new money is printed or made into existence. If you go to the bank and you're just like, hey, let me take out a loan of $5,000, they'll make sure you're good for it. They'll check your credit, make sure you're good for it, and they'll give you $5,000. The same thing with a house. If you go say, hey, I want to buy this house, they'll make sure you're credit worthy and they'll make sure you're good to buy the house and they'll give you the money for the house. But they're not sitting on that money. So when it comes to that personal loan of $5,000, they're not giving you $5,000 that they have in the bank. They're making an extra $5,000. They're pulling that out of nowhere and creating it into the system. The same thing happens when you go to that mortgage loan officer. They're not giving you, or they're not sitting on a pile of cash for that house. That money is created out of thin air. And so nobody knows how many dollars are in existence, which is key as well, because there's so many people out there that are mad at rich people. I hate billionaires. When you understand that there's an unlimited amount of dollars, that means that anybody can get rich. Anybody can go after that money because there's an unlimited amount of it. You just got to figure out how to get to it. He goes on and says, there is no hard limit on how much lending can take place and no easy way of keeping track of all the issuance taking place across all financial institutions in real time. Every time a new loan comes into existence, more money is just created into existence. And so this is how the current dollars that you and I have get devalued. They become less and less, or they are worth less and less over time. This is how that candy bar goes from 50 cents to $1 to $1.50. People are just taking out loans all the time, just creating more dollars and putting more dollars into existence, which makes the current dollars value less. An easy way to look at it is, again, that candy bar went from 50 cents to $1 to $1.50, and now I think I just went to a store and a candy bar was $2.50. And the same thing when it comes to real estate. The house price goes up over time, not because the house gets better over time. It's because your money becomes less valuable over time because they keep making more of it. The underlying technology behind the fiat standard is the ability to create monetary units through the process of lending. This monetization of debt has the same effect as monetization on any market good. It incentivizes the creation of more monetary tokens. This means that the fiat economic system is highly geared towards the creation of more debt. The fiat users are incentivized to get into debt as much as possible. Now, when it talks about getting into debt as much as possible, this is how you have to survive the system. This is how you survive it. You need to get into debt, into good debt, like buying assets. You need to take out debt to buy assets that give you cash flow. That's the whole point. If you're just taking out bad debt, you're drowning. If you're not taking out any debt and you're just going to stay flat and sit there and think that you're just going to save your way to getting rich or wealthy, you're going to drown. Because we live in this debt-based fiat system, it incentivizes everybody to go into debt to beat the system. So it's like we live in this debt-based society, we live in this debt-based system, and in order to beat the system, we need to go into debt ourselves, which just creates this spiral. And so we make the system worse by getting ahead, or some people do. This is how you make the system worse, is in order to beat the system, it is incentivizing you to make it worse at the same time. So It's kind of crazy. But again, if you don't understand this, if you don't understand assets, if you don't understand buying real estate and buying cash flowing assets or buying businesses, you can't get ahead. Under the fiat standard, being rich does not usually mean having many fiat tokens. It rather signifies owning a lot of fiat denominated debt, which dwarfs the amount of physical fiat in fiat savings and checking accounts. Again, so if you see people online flashing money, that's not being rich. Being rich is having assets that give you more fiat tokens. You need cash flow. Assets that allow you to get cash flow. Therefore, it makes sense for individuals, corporations, and governments not to hold positive balances as they will be devalued through inflation, but to borrow. And this is what people like Robert Kiyosaki are always talking about. I think I seen an interview where he said that he was in debt like $2 billion. And it's like, how can you be in debt $2 billion? Well, as long as that cash flow is covering that debt and giving him more money so he can live his life, he can keep doing that forever until he dies. Just keep taking out more debt and going, more into the negative when it comes to the assets that he owns. But they're giving him so much cash flow that he's able to live his life and live it on a high level. So that's what it's about. You borrow from your assets to get more into debt to buy more assets. So he'll buy a bunch of real estate and, he's in debt with that real estate, but then he'll just pull out equity of the real estate to go buy another real estate property, which puts him more in debt, but then also gives him more cash flow. And as long as the cash flow is beating the debt, he's fine. And he'll just stay like that forever. So the cash flow will cover the debt plus put money in his pocket, and he'll just run that play back. And he'll just keep accruing more debt, and which gets him more cash flow. Fiat has effectively destroyed savings as a financial instrument. Yeah, saving does not work anymore. The stocks and bond markets emerged as the pseudo savings technology and the choice to beat inflation. But even that's not working today, and people are still giving out that information. Like, if somebody says, hey, how do I get ahead? Oh, just buy the S&P 500. That doesn't work today. And it's even worse after 2020 because they printed so much more money. So in order to beat inflation, your money needs to be getting you 12% every year. You need to be making 12% on your money. But if you're just putting money into the stock market on average only gives you 10%. So every year you are underwater 2% by just putting your money into the stock market today. It doesn't work anymore. Just telling somebody to put their money into an S&P 500 ETF doesn't work today. You are drowning. You are still in the red. He says that we should not have to choose between saving money and investing. Those two have their place in a portfolio. But now investing is the new savings, which it shouldn't be like that. The problem with this fiat system is that simply maintaining the wealth you already have requires significant active management and expert decision making. And again, this is what everybody is talking about today. It's like, if you're a teacher and you just want to teach, that's what you should be able to do. If you're a plumber and you just want to plumb, that's what you should be able to do. But today, because of this fiat system that we live in, not only do you have to plumb, or not only do you have to teach, but it also requires you, and he names it here. Now you got to be a stock portfolio investor. You got to understand risk management. You have to understand bond valuations, real estate markets, credit markets, global macro trends, national, international monetary policy, commodity markets, geopolitics or politics, all just to keep up today. It's like, what? Like, what are we doing? Like, why does it require this just to keep up today? And it's because the system is terrible. This fiat debt-based system we live in is trash. And it requires this just to beat inflation. Given the rate of monetary inflation, financing wasteful government spending, and these high charged fees by investment management industries, only a small minority of investors can reliably beat monetary inflation. The vast majority must continue to work harder and harder to earn more and to not lose wealth. And again, this is that trap. So many people are going to lose today. I see a lot of people sitting there saying, oh, you just got to work harder. You just got to work harder. It's like, there's only so many hours in the day. Like, you can only tell somebody, oh, you're only working 40 hours a week. You need to be working 80. Well, eventually that 80 hours a week is going to need to turn into 90 and 100 and 110. And it's like, there's only so many hours in the week. This is what this system is set up to do. You're going to have to work harder and longer over time just to keep up today. You have to buy assets. You have to buy assets. That's what it's all about. You need to buy assets that are beating inflation today. And most people don't understand that. Most people are just like, oh, I go to work and I have my money and, I pay my bills and I have some savings. And it's like, if you're not buying assets If you're not buying things like crypto or stocks or real estate, you're going to be dead in the water. And that's just the way the system works. So he says right here, the correct and successful financial strategy under the fiat standard is to continuously take on as much debt as possible. Be meticulous about making all payments on time and use the debt to buy hard assets and generate future returns. And again, going back to people like Robert Kiyosaki, that's the whole game. You take out debt, you buy cash flowing assets, and then you repay those loans on time and you live off the cash flow. And you just keep doing that over and over and over again. Now that will make you go into debt more and more and more, but as long as the cash flow is covering those payments, you're completely fine, and then you win. Doing this successfully improves your credit score and allows you to borrow at lower rates, while you store your wealth in goods that cannot be inflated as easily as fiat. And so this is what they do. They will buy assets that give them cash flow, and they'll keep doing that over and over and over again. The fiat system thus taxes savers and subsidizes borrowers. The fiat standard encourages everyone to live frugal lives and take substantial financial risks. The alternative is slow, continuous bleeding of wealth. And it is true, man. It's so crazy. Like, if you don't understand this, if you don't understand the fiat system in the game, which is to buy assets and cash flow, like, think about that person that works their entire lives, right? They're working a good job. You know, they have some savings in the bank. What do they always do when they retire? They always have to retire and then live below their means. They have to move to a cheaper area. They have to sell their big house and live smaller, live in a smaller house, live in a trailer. And it's like, wait a minute, you're telling me I worked my entire life and I did what I needed to do and I had my savings, and then at the end of it, I need to live like I'm poor? This is the fiat system. You need to own assets. That's the only way you're going to win. If you don't own any assets and you're just working a job and you just have some money in the savings account, you will drown. And it doesn't matter how much money you make, whether you're working at Walmart or you're a doctor. And I'll tell you guys something else too, if you made it this far in the video. Hopefully you stuck around. But everybody thinks that you need to own real estate to cash flow. And I'm starting to hear talks about buying businesses. So you can buy businesses that people no longer want. And you can buy these businesses and the business is cash flow and you don't need to do anything else. So you'll keep the same staff, you'll keep the same management, and you will just buy the business. And that is the new real estate. That's what I'm starting to hear now, is that buying businesses is buying new real estate. Because if you think about it, if you're not buying like apartment complexes and stuff like that, like the single family house, that game is dying because a lot of people are not getting into relationships, they're not getting married, they're not having kids. And so if you're just like, okay, cool, I'll just buy a bunch of single family homes, that game is like starting to die. And so the next game to play is buying businesses from people that no longer want to run them and cash flow like that. But that also requires that it's a lot harder to get into. You're going to need a lot more money to start up front to buy businesses rather than buying real estate. Spending less than you earn and keeping savings on hand are simply no longer optimal financial strategies. They're expensive luxuries most can't afford. The path to financial success under the fiat standard lies in acquiring hard assets. Financing these acquisitions with debt is even more profitable. Again, buying things like real estate, buying things like businesses with debt already, not with your own money, with debt, and then making sure that the cash flow is covering those payments every month. This is a big one that I don't hear anybody talking about. He said in the fiat standard, money becomes a liability rather than future security. So while everybody's just trying to chase the dollar, he's sitting there saying that you need to get rid of those dollars. Those dollars become liabilities. Now, of course, you definitely want to have, an emergency savings on you, but I've heard different things. I think the standard that everybody hears is 3 to 6 months. I've heard 5 to 10 years. you need at least 60 months of savings. But anything after that, those become a liability. You need to get rid of those dollars and buy assets. Because the fiat central banking is built on the fictional idea that devaluing currency will cause people to invest more, thus inducing more economic production, the Fed's policy is to encourage more investments that lead to people engaging in riskier investments than their risk profile would otherwise indicate, leading to financial bubbles and crises. And it's true, because it's like, if you think you're just going to get ahead by investing in Apple, like, that is not the move anymore. You're going to have to take even more risks because, Apple has kind of reached the peak of what they're doing. Like, nobody's really buying iPhones like that anymore. So now everybody wants to be a day trader. Everybody wants to do options or future contracts just to get ahead today. So that's pretty much it when it comes to this chapter on universal debt slavery. Go ahead and hit that like and subscribe because people aren't talking like this on YouTube. Nobody's giving out this free game. But Yeah, man, that's what it's all about. This is why so many people are struggling today. It's because the only way to get out of this system, the only way to beat it is to take on debt, but good debt. You take on debt to buy hard assets. But in doing that, all you do is devalue the rest of the dollars in the system. So people that aren't taking on assets, they're not getting this good debt, these cash flowing assets, these people are struggling. But that's the only way you're going to beat the system. Again, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe. Hopefully you guys learned a little bit. Hopefully you guys are trying to work towards buying assets of your own, because that's the only way that anybody's going to get ahead. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.